Hello, everybody. It is 7:38 p.m. Central Time on the 23rd of January, 2021. It's Saturday here in the United States. Got some breaking news for you. First of all, my stream is back on, finally. Thank goodness. But we have another extremely large earthquake, which is struck here in the Southeast Pacific, right at the tip of Antarctica, on the plate boundary heading over towards the South Sandwich Islands, where our two letter X's are. Big earthquake, 6.9 to 7.1, depending on who you go with. We'll click on the 7.1, takes us over to the EMSC, and we can go over to the USGS and look at the plate boundary map down here to the south, and they have it at 6.9. Now, you know why they have that? Because there was a previous 7.0 just a couple days ago up here to the north, 6.5 and Swarm, that struck. It started out at 6.9. So 6.9 up to the north, now a 6.9 or 7.1 down to the south, and this is on top of the other large earthquake activity that we had on the other side of the planet, which was an additional 6.8 to 6.9 over in Mongolia, and a 7.0 which struck yesterday here at the Philippines-Indonesia border region. So 7.1, huge earthquake in the Southeast Pacific on the plate boundary. Let me show it again where it is. Here, going over to the east and coming back down to the south, the plate boundary goes back up and can be traced back up to the coast of Chile, which then goes back to the west. And a day ago, I told everybody back out here that when this new earthquake struck back out in the middle of the Pacific, that was a new train coming across the bridge, and it's going to be impacting and going down around to the south and ultimately over to the X's. So this is our second 7.0 earthquake in the past 2 days, and they're on both sides of the Pacific. You can, again, let's get all the smaller earthquakes out of there and just look at the sevens. There. 7 on one side, 7 on the other. Another way to look at it on the USGS plate boundary map is 7 over here, where the plate boundaries come together at the Philippines-Indonesia border region, and all the way back down here, where Antarctica comes together with the South Atlantic. All together, it's the whole Pacific plate on both sides spreading out into adjacent plates, such as the 6.8 up at the Mongolia-China border region, which was near 7.0 as well. So it's a lot of movement, both sides of the planet, sevens within a day of each other on two sides of the planet. They're not exact antipodes of one another, antipode meaning opposite side of the planet, but they certainly are on both sides of the Pacific, going over to the east even further, like I said, heading out towards the South Sandwich Islands. So whether the USGS comes in with 6.9 or 7.0, it's just like the last quake, when they came in it with 6.9 and then downgraded it to 6.4. It's sevens. That's what's going on now. We're back at sevens. The forecast for this week was return to sevens. And it had been a while. Somebody told me it had been 3 months since our last round of 7.0 activity going around the planet. Well, here we are now, and it certainly is back. So I was off, and that's a long story, man. Getting shut off and getting turned back on, that's a whole nother story, too. Now, one other thing happened. If you go over to the Disasters Compilation channel over on YouTube, they've got video coming out of Spain on this quote-unquote 4.4 earthquake. Sent people scrambling, and people were really thinking it was a bigger earthquake. It was pretty strong for a 4.4. Getting a lot of video out of the area on that. But like I said, big earthquake activity this week. And we know where the big earthquake activity is coming from. A boatload of deep earthquakes raised high off the globe here that you can see. And these are just the ones you can see reported from the USGS. There's been 30 or 40 more that you don't see on the screen here just this past week. So we're really lopsided on the deep earthquakes. And the deep earthquakes then lead to shallower, larger earthquakes. And that's where we are now with the new round of sevens. So sevens on both sides, west and southeast, means central, north, northeast, and northwest should also compensate. Similar size in the next several days. Think of this like a game of billiards where the ball is bouncing off one side, it can go to the other and follow a trajectory over to the east. Sort of like what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with, or more like a tennis match, if you will, back and forth. So we're going to see this carry on. I'll have to get a new forecast out in light of 2 sevens. Come on, 2 sevens in the last 2 days. Yeah, it's time for a new forecast. We need to look and see what's going to be going on. I'll have to get into that tonight so I can have it prepared by tomorrow and get a new video out tomorrow with a new forecast. Just roughly speaking right now, as I'm looking, I'll tell you a few things. One, we watch where our rings overlap for new large earthquake activity. And just to put it in perspective, we've got a 5.8 up here to the north and this 7.1 or 6.9 down to the south. And where the two rings overlap, that's on the coast of Bio, Chile, which was hit many times with large earthquake activity in the past. So I would say we need to watch between those two, but for something in between a 5.8 and a 6.9, or between a 5.8 and a 7, something between those two, which puts us into the 6 range for right here in South Chile. Additionally, over to the east, I would expect a whole step down, so to go from 6.9 or 7 down to 5.9 or 6 by the time we get over here to the east side of the plate boundary at South Sandwich Islands, just as part of the forecast. Additionally, compensation should happen. So, north side of South America, where all our rings overlap on our previous pinkish-colored earthquake right here at Panama going into Colombia, I'll issue the warning now for near 6.0 activity. I would expect a magnitude less on the north side. That goes as far over east after that. We would have to watch for a swarm of 5s, or at least a few 5s, to pop off across Venezuela and the East Caribbean. Further to the north, in the Northeast Pacific, look, with this amount of activity going on here and over here, what do you think is going to happen up here and over here? There's going to be compensation. The whole plate is shifting. All the deep earthquakes are still happening. We have a whole bunch of new deep earthquakes that just happened today on our letter D again, indicating something still going on. So that means we're going to look for mid-range 6 level or higher. Could be almost the exact same size. Might even be the exact same size, 6.9 to 7.0. Now the warned area, let's go find the spot up to the north. Oh boy. Okay, well we have like 4 sets of earthquakes here. So let's go between the 4 sets right here. If these are the 2 to the north and these are 2 to the south, I'll look right in between the two. It's a very small little area, the most famous earthquake zone on the planet. The coast of Honshu, next to Fukushima of all places. And the magnitude on that should be in the 6 range or higher. Like I said, it could go all the way up to near 7. So I'll put it at mid-range 6 right now, 6.5, but it could go up to 7 or as far down as 6. Coast of Honshu. Then up here to the east by northeast, right here, right out at the mouth of Kodiak Island, going into Anchorage. As a matter of fact, we should probably just warn Anchorage. Let's warn Anchorage, because really, if you look at all the earthquakes, isn't Anchorage kind of right in the middle of it all? Anchorage is right here where this little bay or harbor comes in. So let's warn right in the middle of the whole mess of earthquakes, which is a bunch of 1s, 2s, and 3s now. The magnitudes have gone back up to 3, all the way across Alaska. Again, the whole landmass of Alaska up to Mount Denali, even beyond, and down to the east-southeast along the coast, which means Anchorage is in the middle of it all. Magnitude-wise, we'll put it at 6.0. I'll put it right on at 6, and the only reason is it looks like it's going to be a mid to upper 6 in Japan, and we're always the last to receive it. So it'll be a step below whatever's in Japan and Alaska. Or I'm sorry, whatever's in Japan. Once we get into the United States, we take another step down. And so we would go from 5-ish, upper 5s, maybe, up here in Alaska at the most, I would think. Somewhere, or 6 at the most, 6.0 at the most. That we would go down here and we would be at the 5 range, right off the coast, or maybe even right at Vancouver Island. I'm not taking into account any of the small earthquakes from Canada, but that kind of doesn't really matter. We would look right here in the middle in between our sets of quakes, coming out of Alaska and going down into the North American continent, which really technically puts everyone from 200-mile radius going about 200 miles down to the south and 200 miles up to the north. Okay? Continental United States. Man, okay, well, we've got other stuff going on. We've got a spread of earthquakes going across the edge of the North American craton, but it's getting a little rare. We're up in Ohio, and we were down in Mississippi. So Mississippi got hit. You see that pinkish-colored earthquake there. It's like a 2.0 down to the south, and about the same sized earthquakes going across the rest of the plate. Nothing further to the east than that, though. Again, edge of the craton, we're on the interior side, which is much more rare. Well, interior and exterior side. Mississippi, exterior. Ohio, interior. Both twos. Something is displacing the whole plate, and it's pushed as far east as the mountain ranges, which make up the eastern edge of the craton. All the folds and bends in the plate over to the east. Nothing breaking up to the east-northeast, and I don't like the look on it. I would think that maybe we would go maybe as high as 4.0 range now, up here in the east-northeast. But to find our previous sets of earthquakes, we have to go back to the start of the week. And the halfway point between the two, look where it brings us. Brings us into New York State. New York State, Quebec, Lake Erie, northern Pennsylvania, as far east as, what is that, New Jersey? Okay, so as far east, again, you see it, the middle point between our sets of earthquakes. That halfway point, if you go around the bend of the plate a little bit, right there on the edge of the craton. So that's significant. Getting back to the start of the update, though, the most significant thing of the day is the second 7.0 earthquake that struck down here in the southeast Pacific on the plate boundary. One more time, I'll show you the plate boundary here on the USGS map. The red lines. Right down here at the Drake Passage on the north side, I would call that just the northern arm of Antarctica itself. We go back across the Pacific, and on the other side, that's where our other 7 struck yesterday. Right here where all the plate bends come together. So both sides of the plate are moving. What do you think is going to happen around the rest of the Ring of Fire? And it's not just going to be the Ring of Fire. It's going to spread out all the way over to Europe. And it's going to spread out across over to America, North America, in the next several days. Have a plan. Will you do that at least? Will you please have an earthquake plan and take the time to look up what to do when an earthquake strikes? You should take shelter underneath a table or a desk. And then if you're going to exit your building maybe afterwards, a lot of people don't, but if your building is compromised, that's what everybody in the building management tells you to do. If the building has major cracks in it, I would have a place pre-designated to go somewhere far away, like a campground in another state or something like that. Have a place to go that's pre-designated outside and very far away from either the area or the region. You have to go there, of course, which means you need to have a way to get there and a plan to get there. So it's just recommended, of course, take shelter underneath a table or desk when the earthquake's happening, but what do you do after that? Well, if the power's out, you're going to need an emergency kit. It's going to have a change of clothes, set of shoes, flashlight, batteries, first aid kit, sanitation. But you'll think of way better things to put into your emergency kit. The point of having it, though, is so you can get to it easy. And you can use it for other things other than an earthquake. For instance, the people who had to evacuate in the fires in California. They were only given a few minutes to get out of their house, and they're going around trying to find their wallet or their purse. You only have a few minutes. Well, if you have your important documents and an extra set of keys in your emergency kit, well, that's like 2 minutes or 3 minutes saved right there walking around your house trying to find it, when you could be grabbing more important things like family heirlooms and photo albums. You'll say, my emergency kit already has all that stuff in there that I need. I don't even need to go fumble and find my wallet. I've got an extra debit card in there. I've got all the stuff I need, extra driver's license, whatever. Take the time to do it now. And the reason I'm telling you to take the time to do it now is because we're having a bunch of deep earthquakes around the planet. Hey, hold on. We have a moderately deep earthquake off the coast of Mexico. Hold on. Yep, 214 kilometers deep. Wait a second. Take a look at this. So 214 kilometers deep off the coast of Mexico. We have deep earthquakes over here where our letter Ds are. We have another letter D right here. We have another deep earthquake in the middle of it. But to get a deep earthquake over off the coast of Mexico, that means something's going on in Central America on the east side of the Pacific. Well, no, duh. We already know we're watching for something to now happen in light of the new 7 that struck down here to the south. I'll go ahead and save this as a video. We'll probably go ahead and put this out over on YouTube, even though it's somewhat of an impromptu update, just covering the earthquake itself down in South America. But it's big enough, and I think people need to see this. People need to understand we're going through a pretty serious seismic event. So word up and much love, guys. Thank you to everybody on Twitch who's supporting my operation. I didn't see any of those going by until right now. Thank you to everybody who's been part of that. People are telling me to check the Volcanic Ash Advisory Center and that there's new additions to it as well that I might want to see. Okay, let's go take a look. Hold on. Here we are. Wow, hey, okay. Mount Manam in Papua New Guinea is back on with a 16,000-foot high blast. Kluchevskoy is a regular eruptor. Sabankaya, Subanizajima, Raung with a 13,000-foot high blast. That's in eastern Java, Indonesia. Let's see, who else is on there? Again, there's Manam, Kluchevskoy. Shivalush is back with a 15,000-foot high blast. Pakaya is back in Guatemala, as well as Subanizajima in South Japan. Wow, hey, wow, we've got Santa Guido's back. Dang, hold up. Now, we got to talk about this. So, Pakaya, Santa Guida, and Fuego are all three suddenly going over in the East Pacific in the Central America region. Hold on. Hold on. Let's get a plate boundary map open again and show you where all three of those volcanoes are. Do you see Guatemala right here? Pakaya, Fuego, and Santa Guido, all three residing right where the plate boundaries come together. Those three volcanoes. To the north, we have Popocatépetl erupting. Down to the south, we have to get all the way down here to Sanjay, which is erupting in Ecuador. Sabancaya down in South Peru. And nothing beyond that all the way down across Chile. So it's all focused in right now here with three erupting volcanoes across Guatemala. And we know what's going on the south side. Down here is a new 7.0 earthquake. Down here at the plate boundary to the south. So look what's happening at the bend around up to the north. Three eruptions going around this way. Notice how they're almost the same shape on both sides of South America. It's like molasses going around the outside of the plate. I've shown this before, but I'll show it again. We're going to turn Earth on its axis, and you're going to look at Earth in a way you probably have never looked at it before. Let me go ahead and turn off all my place marks. Turn off all the borders and labels and everything. So looking at South America, you see the South Sandwich Islands down here. This is flowing over from the Pacific. Let me make sure you guys can see this. Flowing over from the Pacific. This is 20,000 feet higher than all this. So this is like a flowing over landslide, if you will. 20,000 foot drop off from this little bend. Now on this bend is the South Sandwich Islands, and if I turn my place marks back on, you'll see the Smithsonian place marks appear with the triangles for all the different volcanoes here on the South Sandwich. Now we're going to go opposite side of the plate all the way up in northern South America. Here's Central America, for instance, in Panama Canal. And coming across this way, look, it's like a landslide again. And this is 20,000 feet higher than this. So wait a second. Look what's at the tip of it. Same shape, size, and everything, volcanoes, just like the South Sandwich. So South Sandwich down here, a line or a crescent of volcanoes on the spillover point at the very edge of it. And here, a line of volcanoes, same shape and everything, and the same distance. It's the same drop-off, 20,000 feet. So this is flowing around like molasses over a long period of time, both sides of South America. Now let's bring it back north. And guess what? Up here, let's go back to the plate boundary map. Now you understand. Where this side's flowing over on the north side, 3 volcanoes and some major activity breaking out. Down here, where we flow over down to the south, big earthquake activity, no eruptive activity to the south. So in other words, seismic to the south, volcanic to the north, at both sides on the spillover points around South America. But you can trace these spillover points back if you just connect them through, and they go back over to here, to where the push is coming up from the underside of the plate. So that's just there. We have other volcanoes that are erupting as well on the other side of the Pacific. Over here in Indonesia, Mount Manam is back, and Papua New Guinea. Mount Manam is right here where both sets of rings are overlapping and our new earthquake struck. Wait, when did that just hit? When did that hit? 5.7 struck earlier. A new 5.6 to 5.7 struck. Dang, okay. Mount Manam is erupting right there. And then we jump over here, and we have the new eruption over in eastern Indonesia at Raung volcano, which we hardly ever have to talk about. That's in eastern Java right here. So Raung is erupting, Manam is erupting, and those are the two new additions to the list. And right in between them, our big 7.0 earthquake that just hit yesterday. So, summing it all up, 2 7s in the last 2 days, new volcanoes back on the list that we haven't seen in God knows how long, a cluster over in the East Pacific and Central America, letting us know terremoto warning should be issued right now for Central America going into South America, and pretty much the whole East Pacific needs to be on watch for an additional near 7.0 earthquake. And I would say we need to watch the Central and Northwest Pacific more than anything. So Japan and Central America, followed by the United States. Man, we are going through it right now. This is the proverbial go time if my viewers only have to go through a few times a year maybe, where we have a go time. I want to say maybe every 4 months or so maybe 3 times a year, we might have one of these kind of events going on, where there's a bunch of deep earthquakes happening. First we see 6s, then it starts to creep up to 6.5s, then it goes up to 6.8s, and now here we are, we're at 7s and 7.1s. It's like turning up the heat, or turning up the volume, turning up the amplitude. And I've explained this before, but I'll explain it again. What I think is happening, what's causing this, the deep earthquakes, hammering in on the underside of the plate. This is just, for instance, what I think would be happening with one deep earthquake over the course of a few hundred to a few thousand miles, that it focuses in on itself, cannot compress into the magma down below, and hammers into the underside of the plate, since it's coming out of the plasticky-like asthenosphere. And the asthenosphere is just a complex term to describe the plasticky-like magma down below the plate. The first area of magma down below the plate that's not as melted or as fluid as the deeper magma. Now, that's the hammer in action from the deep earthquakes. But then the spread starts. Starts small with maybe one deep earthquake. A deep 4 might pop off. Looks like next to nothing. Sends a wave down the tank with a deep earthquake. Imagine this is just one deep earthquake right here, sending out a small wave down the tank. But the tank we're talking about here isn't a straight one. It's the red lines of the plate boundaries that go around the whole Pacific. But it's spreading through this just like this wave tank that I'm showing you now, with one deep earthquake. But then a series of other deep earthquakes start, and they pump more energy into that red line system, that fault zone system, that plate boundary system. As it hammers in more energy, it pumps more amplitude into the waves, but they don't become chaotic and jostle around in the tank. They form into a standing wave, since both ends are compressing. Imagine this side deep earthquakes and this side deep earthquakes, and pumping energy in between. And it goes from 5s to 6s, and then we start bombing out at big earthquakes once we pump so much energy into it that in this tank reference, that if you put more energy into it, the waves could come up out of the tank. But in Mother Nature, we're not coming out of the tank. Instead, I think that's when the earthquake happens. When it gets to a point where it can't handle that standing wave spreading through the tank, that's when the break happens in the plate. It's the force that causes the earthquakes. So then we get a spread of the same sized earthquakes, just like in that tank, where all these are the same size waves almost, that the same sized earthquakes pop off all the way around the tank. And the tank, like I said, again, is the series of red lines that spread across the Pacific. And thus we get sevens on one side, sevens on the other within a day of each other. This has happened so many times. As a matter of fact, the last time this happened, I got into a huge debate. This actually happened several times since, but maybe like the third or fourth time this happened. So this was like maybe 2015, 2016. I got into a huge debate with this professor who was denying that there's any relation between earthquakes around the planet. And the professor said it was just chance that there were sevens back to back on both sides of the Pacific plate within a day of each other. Now that happened when Kyushu got hit. Kyushu got hit in Japan several years ago. 7.0 earthquake struck here. Put a big fissure down the center of the island, caused major damage. The next day, a 7.0 earthquake struck over to here in Ecuador, and it caused major damage. It was huge. 7.0 range, both of them within a day of each other. I made a video saying, hey, look, 2 sevens back to back, both sides of the Pacific plate, related to each other. We need to watch out for a further back and forth, like a tennis match. That's when the professor weighed in, went on the record, made mainstream news posts saying that Dutch Sint, referenced my name no less, and said that there was no relation between the earthquakes across the Pacific. Guess what happened? They put out the mainstream media story that day. After I put out my story, that next day, they put out their mainstream media story denying there was a relation. That night, a new 7.0 earthquake struck, right here at the Solomon Islands, at Vanuatu, Solomon Islands. And then, the next day after that, a new upper 6 struck off the coast of Mexico on the plate boundary here. So it was 4 large earthquakes that happened back to back. When the first 2 happened, the professionals came out denying there was a relation. The next day, when the other 2 hit, they shut their big mouths and haven't said a word since. Now it just happened again. So I have to tell you that story because professionals said there was no relation between earthquakes across distances on opposite sides of the plate, and there is. We just saw it again happen today. 7 yesterday, 7 today. 2 sides of the plate, 10,000 miles apart. Have an earthquake plan, will you? Now I'm going to take the time to sign off, tell you much love. This turned into a little bit longer of an update than I expected, but I had to go check the volcanoes. People are telling me to check out the tremor map. Man, do you want this update to keep going forever? Look at the chat room, guys. I'm not joking. They're telling me to check the tremor map. On top of everything else, go check the tremor map. All right. Hold on. Let's go see what's going on. Go check the tremor map. Okay, hey, you know what? Wow. Well, nothing to see here, folks. I think of Leslie Nielsen in the movie Naked Gun or whatever, where he's standing in front of an exploding fireworks factory. But he's waving his hands and he's saying, nothing to see here, folks, and he's pointing to people, please move, Keep moving, nothing to see. How about an equidistant spacing of tremors going from the middle of Vancouver Island down to the southwest tip of Washington to central Oregon down to northwest California? And we're looking at 311 different tremors as of today, equally spaced across the whole Juan de Fuca fracture zone. And you can see the pinnacle tips of the Juan de Fuca out here making like a lightning bolt shape. Hopefully you guys can see all this. Yes, the lightning bolt shape of the Juan de Fuca out here. And the corresponding points to the north, well, here, hold on. We need to look at it this way. Do you see the point up here to the north? It's like an arrow pointing into kind of slightly north by northeast. If we follow the trajectory of it, it puts the pointing arrow of the zone right into here, into Vancouver, right? Look, that's where the tremors are. Now down here, same thing. Do you see where the tremors are in southwest Washington? Look what corresponds off the coast of southwest Washington if we go due west. The axial seamount out here, like another notch or an arrow pointing into the spot that's shifting. Let's carry on down to the south, shall we? Look, the spot to the south. Here's the giant arrow bend shape of the southern arm of the Juan de Fuca, and it points up, again, at a north by northeast angle or a trajectory, and that goes right to where the tremors are. And then down to the south, we go into Northern California, and look where the tremors are in Northern California. Here's the Gorda Escarpment and Mendocino Ridge that makes a bend and goes down into the San Andreas. Let me show it to you on the USGS map. Gorda Escarpment, Mendocino Ridge, bend into the San Andreas, and all those other tremors are right here at the southernmost tip of the arm of the Juan de Fuca fracture zone to the south. So northern arm, central, central south, and fault south, full south, all moving with small tremors. These are little vibrations as the plate is shifting. These are up above this. This is down, or another way to look at it, this out in the ocean is down below all this. And these arrows are pointing in and up to the spots which are shifting on land. Think of this like a bathtub. This is the bottom of the bathtub. This is the side or arm of the bathtub. And you're going up from the bottom, up and into. And up at the top is where the shifting and vibrating is taking place as the tension's being created out here in the ocean on the Juan de Fuca fracture zone, the red lines. And as I told you about the red lines around the rest of the planet, they're shifting and in flux right now, as evidenced by the 3 volcanoes erupting down here at Guatemala, as evidenced by the 7.1 down here, or 6.9, on the edge of the plate boundary down to the south, and the 7.0 activity all the way over here on the west side, plus the new eruptions going on over on the plate boundary at Raung, over here at Manam, Kluchevskoy and Shiveluch up here at Kamchatka, Suwanese-jima and Sakurajima down here in South Japan. These are all volcanoes erupting. Popocatépetl erupting in Mexico. Like I said, the 3 in Guatemala going down here into South Peru on the red line, or right off of it. To the east, we have Sabancaya. That's a lot of volcanic activity, but it's not comparable to where we've been in the past. Volcanically speaking, we've seen 20 different volcanoes erupt in a day before. In 2011, we saw multiple large earthquakes, 8s and 9s, happen in 2011. In 2007 was the year with the most 8.0 range activity. So we're not back to that level yet. So before you get thinking that it's like end of the world or something, we saw worse activity in 2011. I was here. I covered it. It's on my channel, so you can't tell me it didn't happen. Now, we don't want to see any worse activity. But the deep activity that's taking place now means shallower, larger earthquakes are incoming. We're going to be seeing a new round of activity. We've got a bunch popping off here now, and we're not done yet. I'll have a new full forecast out tomorrow. It'll probably be about an hour long, just the forecast. And we'll go over every location on the planet, reduce it down to a region and a forecast for each region. You guys be safe. Word up, much love. I'm going to save this as a video and put it out over on YouTube.